Hi there, and thank you for tuning in to The Social Circus, where every week we dive into a variety of topics covering social media, mindset, and how to run your business. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. Hello, my lovely listeners, and welcome to another episode of The Social Circus. I am your host, Sarah Thompson, and each and every week I bring out a new episode of my podcast to help you support you as a small business owner. Now, today is episode 142, and it's a really exciting one because today I'm going to be talking about my 14 years in business. And I really hope that you enjoy listening to this because I'm actually going to share some reflections on what it has been like when I started my business to what it feels like now and some of the bumps in the road along the way. And I think I have got two other episodes. I do this episode every year in March, like a reflection on my business, where it came from and where am I now. And obviously, having been in business for such a long time, I've weathered many storms, many changes, and I want to sort of dive into some of those today. But what I would love to start out with is to share with you how I started my business, because I think it would be really easy to look at my business and imagine that I had it all together from the start. And to imagine that I knew what I was doing and I had a very clear vision when I started my business. And I really want to talk about that because that is absolutely not the case. So when I started my business, I did it in a way that I would absolutely not recommend. So I left my corporate job in a huffy because I was exhausted and drowning and working really long hours. At the time, so my children are baby adults now. But at the time, my sons were 3 and 5 years old, and I was working full-time in a corporate marketing job, which meant that I worked very long hours. I was away from home. I felt like I was doing everything badly. I felt like I was doing a terrible job as a parent. I didn't feel like I was doing a great job in my work. I didn't feel like I was a great wife. I felt like our house was in chaos and it was all holding on by a thread. And I left one night from my job at 11:30 because we used to do events. So I was often there in the evenings doing events. And as I was leaving, my boss said to me, "Don't forget, we've got a breakfast meeting in the morning at 7 a.m. And I got in my car and I cried all the way home. And I said to my husband, "I don't care if we live in a cardboard box. I don't want to do this. I'm so miserable. I'm so unhappy." And I went in the next day and resigned. Now, that sounds like, well done, look at me now. However, at the time, I had no idea what I was going to do, and I had no idea what business I was going to start. And I just want to share, at the time, my husband had a fledgling business of his own. He had an IT business for many years. And so I was kind of the main breadwinner offering us that stability. So for me to do that actually put him under a lot of pressure at the time because he needed to grow his business and have that stability to replace my wage. So leaving a job like that is something I would never advocate. If you have the opportunity to pare back your hours or to work more part-time or to take on contract work, I would definitely recommend that as a better way to start your business. And I would also say to you, maybe have an idea of what you're going to do. So at the time, I only sort of a few years previously, I'd been living in the UK. And when I was living in the UK, I worked as a marketing consultant. And obviously in London, there is lots of work in that space and it was really well-paid work. You would go in and do a job for like 3 or 6 months, work on a project, typically launch it or progress it and then leave. And I thought, well, I might just go and do some consulting work or some contract work, and got a very big shock about the Perth marketplace because that kind of work doesn't really exist. I did bits and bobs of contract work probably for the first 12 months that I was in business, sort of like a week here and there, but not those nice, juicy contracts that I was hoping to do, and really enjoy having that freedom and space while my children were still really young. So it didn't work out as I thought. And again, that comes back to a lack of research and making a bad decision at the time to throw my job without any kind of decent plan. Okay, so I would say to you, if that's how you're going, please keep in mind that is not what I would advocate or recommend. It is a bad idea and puts you under an immense amount of pressure. On the flip side of that, I got my business up and running pretty quickly and I started making money quite quickly because I had to. I said yes to lots of things that I probably wouldn't say yes to, but I was up and running quite quickly. Now, my vision for my business was a stopgap. So I was going to do this for a couple of years while my children were very small And then I was going to go back into corporate marketing and get a proper job in the real world. That's the kind of language that I spoke to myself about. So um, I want you to hear that, because I want you to know that my vision was never to be sitting here 14 years later running my own business. And I'm so happy that I am. But I want you to know that wasn't my intention when I started my business. So when I started, I had no vision of what I wanted to do. I had no plan. And I had a lot of mistaken beliefs about what the market was going to want me to do and what it actually did. The other thing that a lot of people don't know, because you all know me as Online Social Butterfly, is that I also did not have a business name. So I probably traded, I just called myself like Sarah Thompson, and I was just a marketing consultant. I didn't have a website, I didn't have a name, I didn't have anything. So I want you to hear this, because if you're sitting there looking at me thinking, I've got all my little duckies in a row, I mostly have, but I certainly did not. Okay, so in those early days, I was scrambling to get my act together. I was scrambling to do things, and my business did not look like what it does today. So in those early days, I think that I can probably look up my business registration, but I think I traded without a proper name for about 6 months. I traded under our family trust, so I had all of that established in terms of how I could invoice people and things like that. But I didn't trade under a name for quite a long time. And it was only when I got my first business coach. So shout out to Claire Mitchell from the Girls Mean Business. She is an English, UK-based business coach. And I found her online, and she was offering this idea to kind of, I think it was called Running a Business in Heels. It was a super cool program that she had that taught you how to launch your business. And I was like, wow, I need to work with her. So she kind of got me up and running, and she politely said to me, I probably need to get a name for my business. And it was actually my husband that chose the name Online Social Butterfly, based on the fact that everyone calls me a social butterfly in real life. It's something that I get called quite a lot, but he kind of liked the idea of the online, because that's the space I was going to go into, was in that digital marketing space. That was always my intention, to be in that online. And social butterfly, the play on words with social, like social media, social marketing, that was always a very clever play. And at the time we could get the domain. So that ticked all of the boxes. And again, I want to just say that is not a robust marketing plan in terms of how I started my business. But I now feel like 14 years later, or 13 years for my business name, I still love Online Social Butterfly as a business name. I still feel like it holds really true to what and who I am. But that being said, if you choose a business name, you don't have to stay with it forever. You're allowed to move and grow on from it. You're allowed to change and evolve. So I want to share those things with you, because most of you see me now and don't know where I came from and what my journey was. The other thing I want to share with you is that at the time when I launched my business, I worked with everyone who ran a small business. I was very unniched. I was just like, if you've got a business, I'll work with you. So the first service that I offered, which sounds hilarious now, is people paid me to set up their business Facebook page. Yep, I actually got paid to do that. I think I'd struggle to come across someone now who A, didn't have a Facebook page, or B, couldn't work out how to set it up. So that was one of my primary services that I offered. And I used to go and meet with people and pitch to them, you need social media, it's going to be the future, and I can help you get represented and get online. And it was I can't even express to you how hard that was, because everybody had a website and everybody did things like face-to-face networking. And some people did things like Google pay-per-click, like ad campaigns, but not that many. So most people were doing what we call traditional marketing and showing up and doing face-to-face networking, connecting and things like that. So me saying, this is going to change and you need this, I was certainly kind of like yelling into the wind very much. I was one of the few people that was talking about that. And in my early days, there was not many people who did what I did. And it was actually very hard, because if your business goes into a segment where it's not established, okay, so people don't innately understand what it is. If your business goes into a segment, you have a doubly hard job in terms of marketing, because first of all, you have to educate people on what is this that I do, and then you have to educate them on why do you need me, okay? So at the time, it was quite a hard job. And if I'm really honest, some of the very first work that I did, and this is hilarious because I'm not a lover of LinkedIn. So some of the very first work that I did is I did a lot of freelance work, and I worked for a couple of agencies. And I used to go and run workshops for them on LinkedIn and how to use LinkedIn for business. And I'd go and work with their clients and I'd present on that. So I kind of was already in the space, like I understood social media. I'd used it in my last corporate role a little bit. And I understood platforms like LinkedIn, and I kind of did a little bit of training. And so I was trying my hand at different things. And the interesting thing was there was a lot of work at the time in LinkedIn because like sort of medium-sized organizations would pay for you to come in and train their staff. But I didn't enjoy LinkedIn. I found it so incredibly dry, and I had spent 15 years in corporate marketing, and I kind of felt like I wanted to step away from that, and I wanted to forge a new path of this is who I'd like Sarah to be. And I really enjoyed Facebook and I thought it was really fun. So I rolled the dice, and to be fair, it's paid off, and thought I'm going to niche myself into Facebook and teach how to set up Facebook pages, how to create posts, which let's just say at the time was just static images. And you could even just put up posts that were just words in those days. Can you believe it? So it was kind of a lot simpler than what it is now. So I had made a decision, and I want to be frank and say it was a lucky decision. Let's be honest, there are lots of people making a really good living out of being LinkedIn marketing experts, but my growth has been a lot easier because I chose a platform that has had exponential growth. So I aligned myself with a platform which is now, to this day, the world's biggest social media platform, which is Facebook. Okay, so I made a lucky break very early in my business and decided to focus on Facebook. Okay, so in the early days, a lot of my business was going out pitching to people, convincing them that I would set up their social media and I would manage it for them. So in the early days, I did a lot of what was called social media management. I would write their posts, I would get their images. We'd use a lot of stock images in those days. There was no Canva, by the way. And they would approve it, and then I would often manage their content. I used to do what was called community management. So people who might have had a group on Facebook, I did anything that people wanted me to do in terms of marketing. And I look back and think, I'm amazed I made it because I didn't have a clear strategy. Whilst I was niched, I don't think I did a great job of educating people on why you would outsource your social media. Like, it's very well understood nowadays why people would do that. So I really wanted to share that with you because I want you to know that I made it in spite of that. I made it in spite of not having a plan. I made it in spite of not having a clear niche or a clear audience. And I made it for one very specific reason, and it's to do with myself. And it's all about like a part of your mindset, which I call just tenacity. And I have only sort of become aware of this in the last couple of years, that this is who I am and it's who I naturally am. And I think having worked in corporate marketing, you spend a lot of your time in marketing in a corporate role, having an agency present designs to you, and you analyze the design against your brief, and then you give them feedback and you keep testing and you keep trying. Then say you put out an ad and you test it on audience responses and you go, they didn't love that, we're going to refine it. And so let's just say, having, an undergraduate degree in marketing, then I went straight into the workforce, into marketing. I learned that in marketing, what we do is we work to a brief and we create a concept we think our audience will like. We put it into the marketplace and we test it and we refine it. And that made me very resilient to, if that didn't work, I will just try something else, or I will tweak and refine. And anyone who works with me nowadays, and the women in my mastermind say this all the time, like someone will go, what do you think I should do? And then they'll say, I know the answer is it's going to be tested. And my background in marketing and that tenacity to say, if something doesn't work, it doesn't mean I have failed. It means that I need to refine my offer and test it and keep trying. And so in those early days, I did a lot of things for people. And what I learnt was, what did people want me to do and what were they struggling with? So I had very young children, and so I worked kind of weird hours. I'd often work in the evenings because my boys might be home in the day. And so things like doing social media management, where I can write your content whenever I want and email it to you and you can approve it, was very suitable for a young family and working around my young family. Nowadays, the thought of writing someone's social media content fills me with dread, because I think, imagine having to get to know someone's business that intimately, which I definitely did. But I ran my business around my family and I learnt what worked and what people were attracted to. Over the years, my offering has grown and evolved. And how I did that was I, again, listened to my audience and what they liked. But I also started to listen to, as I got success and traction, I started to listen to what it is that I liked doing and that I really enjoyed. Okay. Because I realized that I was probably going to stay in this business. Like I was really liking the freedom and flexibility of working for myself, of working from home, hanging out with my hubby, being around for our kids. It was kind of like, this is what I was hoping my life was going to look like. And now it did. And so, funnily enough, and I know my mum doesn't listen to my podcast and we're all good, I reckon probably 5 or 6 years, my mum still sent me jobs on Seek. Because I think she thought I was going to go and get a proper job as soon as my kids were at school full time. All of these little benchmarks and milestones came and went, and I never went and got a real job. She doesn't do it anymore. I'll just say that. She gets where we're at now. I don't know if she fully understands what I do, but she gets where I'm at. So it was a lot of tenacity on my part to say, I'm going to make this work, and I was going to hit certain income goals, which were not a lot in the early days, like compared to what I earn now. I'm amazed that I thought that I was going to make it, because sometimes you didn't earn a lot of money in your business. But it was really exciting because over the first sort of 3 or 4 years, I think that I realized that people were willing to pay to outsource, and I started to refine who my audience was. And I was really lucky to have a wonderfully supportive husband who from day one has always believed in me and was always a really good sounding board. And I remember quite a pivotal moment in my business, and it was probably within the first 2 years. I drove 45 minutes from home to go to a coffee catch up with 2 gentlemen who were mortgage brokers. And I already had a mortgage broking client at the time. And they said they wanted to outsource their social media. And then they said to me, after giving them an hour of my time where they picked my brains, can you imagine giving that away? They then said to me, could I email them a proposal that would give them a breakdown of what my strategy was, what I recommended. So basically what they were asking me to do is hand over my intellectual property. And I said to my husband when I got home from the meeting, I said, they're not my people. And he goes, just tell them you've got another mortgage broken client and then you can just jettison them. Like that's the polite thing to say. You don't want 2 clients in the same sector. And I said to him, I feel like every time I go and meet with male-led businesses, they don't understand the inherent value of marketing. They still think marketing is woolly and fluffy, and they think that what I'm doing is just messing about on social media. And he said to me, well, don't have any male clients. And I said, when I meet with females, they get that they're busy and they get that this is what they're going to need. And they're like, yes, how much is it? Sign me up. Like it was a much easier yes. And so it was in the first couple of years that I decided that I would really lean into working with female entrepreneurs. And that has been something that I have continued to lean into to this day in my business. So yes, I still work with men. They have to be pretty robust to get past all my female-led pink marketing. But I will always work with men. I typically have 2 to 3 male clients at any given time. And mostly they love me, love my marketing. They like my no-nonsense approach. Fortunately, now I don't have to convince anybody that marketing is an important part of a business. I think we've moved on in that. But that was a very big lesson early at the time. And if you don't have someone in your life, like if you're new in business and you don't have someone, like I'm so lucky to have my husband Grant, who would say to me, trust your instincts. Why is that a good thing? I don't think you should do that. Try and find someone that can help. So you might not be able to afford a business coach. You might not be able to afford a paid mentor, but kind of go to networking events and see if you can find someone who might be your friend who's just a couple of steps ahead of you in business, because what they're going to do is give you advice and guidance. And you want someone who's honest, who's going to be a straight shooter and not just tell you what you think you want to hear. They're going to give you really genuine advice. So I would really recommend, if you can find someone in the early days to help and guide you, that would be incredibly useful. So keep that in mind, that you're going to need some help and support outside your family and friends. And again, I'm going to say this because my mum doesn't listen. If I was relying on someone like my mum thinks I'm awesome, which is wonderful to have someone like that in your life. She thinks I'm amazing and tells me all the time I'm amazing. And if I was to ask her, she would say something like, everything you do is brilliant, Sarah, right? Which is really nice to have been raised by someone who treats you like that. But it's not very helpful when you're running a business, because you need feedback and you need guidance and you need support and you need someone to help you course correct so you can go on the right path. But the other thing that I started to do as I got traction was to hone my offering to things that I really enjoyed. And again, I should know this, but I reckon it was about 4 years into my business, I started doing training. And as I said, I started in training when I was in my first year of business. I used to offer myself as a trainer in LinkedIn, and then I sort of didn't like LinkedIn, so I dropped that. And then I kind of realized training was a really fun thing. And my first workshop that I ran was called How to Manage Your Facebook in 10 Minutes a Day. Okay. And it was a 3-hour workshop. I think I delivered like 10 hours of content. People left there bleeding out their ears. I had given them so much into their brain. It was just too much. But that was quite a pivotal moment for me in my business, because then I realized, wow, I love training. I love empowering people to learn how to do this themselves so that they can either do it themselves, or if they outsource it, they can then make a critical assessment, say that person knows what they're doing because I know what they're telling me. So that was a really big moment for me in my business. And I realized that I really wanted to pursue the path of training people. And many of you will know that mostly what I do now is I don't offer social media management. I probably haven't offered it for about 8 years. I don't do work for clients. I coach clients, and I offer online courses, and I do in-person and online training. Okay, so my business, when I found something that made my heart sing, I was like, I want to do more of that. And that's one of the things nobody tells you when you start a business is, if you can find the thing that makes your heart sing. And I'll be really frank and say, the things that I did in the early days of my business did not make my heart sing, but they brought in money and they allowed me to try different things out. So then I could decide, oh, I like this, or can I do more of that, or I really enjoy this. So if you are starting a business right now and you're trying to work out what is your offering, what do you do, please don't be afraid to try different things, okay? This is not the 10 commandments written in stone tablets, all right? You are allowed to throw your hand out, have a go at a few different types of businesses and see how that grows and evolves. Because eventually you'll find something, A, that sticks and gets traction, or that you kind of go, wow, that's great. Now, I really want you to hear this, because I was doing training before Online Social Butterfly existed. Remember, I was doing LinkedIn training and I did not like it. And so it didn't strike me as, oh, I'd love to be a trainer. When I first started training, it didn't occur to me that that was going to be something that I just loved, because I'd done it before, but I didn't like the topic. Okay, so keep in mind that even though you might have tried your hand at something, it might be in a different space or a different topic, and you haven't found your jam yet. And I will also say, you will need to do things that make you feel uncomfortable. Okay, so I now, like right now, I'm sitting in my home office. I have the camera on. Everything's really comfortable. I remember years ago, the thought of videoing myself filled me with terror. And I think Facebook's getting rid of a lot of lives and stuff. I've got some really old videos on Facebook that are probably like 6 or 7 years old. My husband and I set up our dining area with these lights and a green screen, and he would faff about with ages making it all look perfect. And it made it a really big barrier to me filming video content. And now in my office, I sit in front of a wall, so there's no green screen. I have 2 little ring lights, and I just turn it on and I go, and it's very, very simple. So at the time, again, if you'd said to me, do you think you're going to lean into video? I would have gone, no, that is awful. But technology has moved and it's become a lot easier. But I will say to you, you will have to feel uncomfortable. Right now, I'm pretty confident that if someone said to me, hey, we're going to run a masterclass on a topic that you cover tomorrow, can you show up with no slides and speak for an hour? Probably I can. And I could do it really comfortably in front of a camera. And that is just a result of doing things over and over again. It's not like I stepped into my first workshop going, oh, I was born to be in front of a room. I don't want you to think that. I want you to know that there was lots of uncomfortableness. Is that a word? Discomfort. There was lots of discomfort. There was lots of, I'm going to show up and do this because I know this is good, but I'm not enjoying it. And so it took me a little while to step through those hard things. All right. So the business that I run today is the business of my dreams. Okay. Because I still get to work at home. And even though my boys are now, I have no school age children now. My boys are, one's in workplace, one's at university. I'm here. My husband is here. I feel like we probably didn't celebrate this enough. We did it. Our goal was to be present for our sons and to be available and at home with them. And that was our goal. And we did it. So if your goals are around that, the other thing I want to say to you is build your business around those goals. If they're really important to you, like for me, I was spending way too much time in my office, way too much time commuting and away from home. And so my goal was very clear about why I was starting my business. And I intentionally built my business around this. And I'm telling you all now, I lost clients because of that. I went to a meeting once with a client and my son was sick and I had to take my son. He had ENT problems and so he was sick a lot. And he wasn't contagious, but I took him and the gentleman emailed me after and said he thought it was really unprofessional. And I said, oh, that's okay. I'm probably not the person for you. Okay. So that was really hard. I also couldn't attend all the things because I might have been doing mummying stuff. And I had people say to me, oh, you shouldn't talk about your family. You shouldn't talk about your children. I'm like, oh, I'm not for you. But at the time, each client that you lost you felt it because you needed those clients. So you will build the business of your dreams and know that the people who want that same thing will find you. Because now I look at my audience and I guess the best example is my mastermind. It is full of these beautiful women who are all my ideal customer. They're building the business of their dreams. They're building it around whatever their parameters are in terms of their home life, their family life, their commitments that they have, because a lot of us have commitments around caring for our parents now. And they're building it with that dream in mind. And so I think because I built my business like that, I'm now attracting people who also want to build their business like that. And it makes me really happy to see my audience when it's full of those kind of people. So with today's podcast, what I really wanted to share with you was where I started to where I am now and some of the things that I did along the way, because it is very easy if you look at someone like myself who's 14 years in business and maybe you're thinking about going into business or you've just started a business or maybe you're only a couple of years in business. I really want you to hear that a whole lot of it is really messy. A whole lot of it is really hard and unpleasant. But if you can keep thinking about what your why was in terms of why you started your business and keep coming back to that, that is going to see you through. And then you're going to wake up like I have this morning and go, I built this. This is amazing. This is what I hoped it was going to be. And now I get to do. Like, there's not much in my business that I find a chore because I enjoy so much of it because I intentionally built it around things that I love doing. So I hope that you have enjoyed today's podcast. It is a very personal share, so I guess it's not for everyone. That's totally fine. But I hope this is something that will inspire you or maybe allow you to reflect on where are you now and what was your why when you started your business, and are you still facing that true north in your business? And if not, I want you to have a little think about what's important to me and how do I make sure I build that into my business, because even in the early days when I didn't have a viable business, I still built in those things that were important to me. And as a result, my business built how I wanted it to. So thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. I hope you've enjoyed the very personal share. Next week's episode is also going to be a personal share because March is Endometriosis Awareness Month, and I'm going to be talking about my journey with endometriosis. So as always, thank you, my beautiful listeners, for tuning in each and every week to the Social Circus, and I will catch you the same time next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Social Circus. As your host, Sarah Thompson, I am thrilled that you've chosen to spend your time hanging out with me. I would be so grateful if you could spare an extra moment to go and leave me a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And if you even felt more excited, you could share my podcast with your friends who you think would get great value from it. Thanks so much again for tuning in.